Queen Anne's County Planning Commission for Thursday, October 12th, 2023. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comment?
Good morning. Amy Mordock, Planning Director. I wanted to discuss our public comment and testimony protocol. We mentioned several months ago that we would be developing a protocol for receiving testimony and giving testimony and managing correspondence in the era of electronic communication, which can become cumbersome when we have very large projects. We will be sharing that draft policy at our next meeting. What is involved is we will give you the draft of that protocol. Our legal counsel, they have given us guidance on the standing case law that is guiding this protocol. So we are ready to share that with you, and you will need to officially adopt this protocol as a part of the Queen Anne's County Planning Commission bylaws. So I wanted to let you know that it is forthcoming, and to give a brief summary of it, we obviously aren't going to implement it today, but as a general policy, I wanted to outline how we are going to identify correspondence. And correspondence will include letters, emails, and voicemails. All correspondence that we receive, we need to receive at least 10 days before a scheduled meeting to enable us to give you all of the correspondence received in your packets. The informational packets that you receive, that is all compiled, the staff reports, the materials that the applicant provides, and so correspondence will be included in that packet. Up to 48 hours, we will still, of course, accept correspondence. We always will accept correspondence, but within 48 hours of a start of a meeting, we will be sure to provide the Planning Commission members with copies of that correspondence at your stations prior to the meeting. If you have time to consider it before a hearing, you may do so. But it will, of course, be included in the case file. Anything that is received after that 48-hour period will be included in the case file. And at your convenience, you can always come in and review the file, but we are not going to read aloud correspondence that we receive. Testimony, always welcome. We will continue to handle testimony in the same way that we always have during the public comment periods. At this point,
Speak specifically about oral testimony.
yes,
Yeah.
right, oral testimony will always be received at the beginning of a meeting, at the end of a meeting, and then during the case that you're hearing. We will continue to limit that testimony to 3 minutes. Any testimony in excess of 3 minutes can be submitted in writing for the file. Obviously, testimony is clearly meant for Planning Commission consideration and is not a matter of debate. And the level of discourse and professional courtesy obviously has to be maintained, as it always is, but we're going to formalize all of these steps. Today, what we will do, we have received some written testimony, some emails leading up to the meeting, clearly within that 48-hour window. No one was given due notice of this policy. So what we will do today is acknowledge what we have received in the way of correspondence. We aren't going to read it out loud, but just summarize what we've received for your information and include it in the file.
Okay.
Questions about that? Okay, and we will provide you with the draft.
So we received two.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Bruce Grove, and I work for QAC TV, and I'll be the liaison for the people today. We had two emails, one from Michelle Smith and one from Mike Newman. They both were concerned about accidents on Route 8, and they sent in pictures, so they'll be able to be viewed later by you. And then we had two comments for the subdivision later that we'll just summarize now that were from Jay Corsi Willis and Sheila Willis, who are both concerned about the subdivision being built due to traffic on Route 8 also.
Okay.
And that's all.
All right. Thank you. Any other public comments? Meeting minute review.
Madam Chair, I move that the minutes be accepted as written for September 14, 2023 Planning Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Updates, legislation and legal matters.
Good morning again. I only have a few points to update you on. One legislative update, and that is that the Armored Storage Growth Allocation Award became effective on the 7th of October over this weekend. So that project is officially approved within the intense development area of the critical area, and the applicant is currently working with the Critical Area Commission to meet the conditions that have been placed on that project by the commission. Also, just to let you know, in terms of a legislative update, on the 19th of October, MACO is holding a cannabis symposium in Millersville. So staff will attend to learn what we can about how the recreational cannabis legislation will be implemented from a zoning perspective. So we hope to have an update, a more substantial update for you at the next meeting about that.
Have you had many complaints about, like, the smell of what's going on?
I have not, but I do understand that there have been complaints in the town of Centerville, but there have not been complaints in our office that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Additionally, just a reminder that from the 24th to the 26th of October, the Maryland Department of Planning will be holding the Maryland Planning Commission Association's 40th Annual Conference. Thank you to all of you who have registered. I look forward to your attendance. Those of you who can't attend, I'm sorry about the conflict. It's going to be an exciting conference for us. I would encourage you to attend on the 24th. For a day of Maryland Department of Planning training. We are holding a tour of key development sites that have been recently approved in the county. If you can attend that bus tour, I would appreciate that. And also, there will be two buses, so you can sort of divvy up and join the different bus tours and maybe add some of your own context and impressions of those locations on the tour. The bulk of the conference is held on the 25th. That is the day in which Commissioner Corcorino will kick off the conference, and our chairwoman, Sharon Dobson, will be closing the day at the dinner, but the dinner is also a big awards ceremony. So I know that Wednesday will be a long day, but if you can plan to attend the whole day and enjoy the dinner and the awards ceremony, we'd love to see you all there. The closing of the conference is another day of training. It's a lighter day. I think the day ends at noon, and there will be Open Meetings Act training, which comes with a certificate. So if you don't have that certificate yet, you might want to consider making sure that you catch that session. And finally, the second accessory dwelling unit task force meeting will be held on the 31st of October. I did attend the first task force meeting a few weeks ago, and it was really just an introductory meeting. Everyone is providing context for how accessory dwelling units are zoned and what the needs are. A lot of what it is that this task force will be reviewing is not only addressing affordable housing and housing equity in the means of providing accessory dwelling units, but there is an affordable housing dynamic in general to what the task force is looking at, and I'll keep you updated as those meetings become more substantive.
Okay,
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Rob Tracy. I'm a long-range senior planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning.
you gotta talk louder.
I don't think his mic's on.
Please.
I don't think the
Is your
mic's
mic
on.
on?
Doesn't look like it.
Is mine on? Yeah.
I'll tap it.
No.
No.
I just wanted to trick you today.
I've just got quieter.
Uh-oh.
I can speak up.
Here, sit here. Let's switch seats. I'm done.
Good morning. My name is Rob Tracy. I'm a long-range senior planner with the Department of Planning and Zoning. I'm here today to talk about the Town of Church Hill's comprehensive plan. The Town of Church Hill is in the process of updating their plan. Their plan was adopted in 2010, and when they did the review of their plan, they found that the 2010 plan remains a competent and viable means to project growth. They did want to update.
You just cut him off.
Bruce.
That wasn't me.
Come on, Bruce.
So they found that the 2010 plan is still viable and competent for growth and projections for the town. They did, however, want to update the 2010, or excuse me, they did want to update the plan to include new census data as well as housing data to be consistent with a law that was passed by the Maryland General Assembly, I believe, last session or the session before that. We received a copy of their plan for review and comment, which is consistent with the 60-day review, which allows the public and other local agencies to comment. The county's comprehensive plan technical committee reviewed it. We completed a thorough review for consistency between their plan and our newly adopted comprehensive plan. Overall, the plan is concise, well organized, and aligns with the many goals of our comprehensive plan. The town of Church Hill is going to be doing a public hearing on November 13th, where they'll review comments that they've received. So today I'm asking for a favorable motion to accept staff's comments and authorize me to send the letter that is drafted and before you to them. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
You're looking for a motion, right? Or we discussion? You want to discuss it first?
I don't know. Madam Chair, I move that Planning Commission sign and send the letter drafted to the Town of Church Hill Planning Commission dated October 12, 23.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So be it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Major subdivision. Rob Gunter.
Y'all coming up?
Lasix Place.
These two work. The two outside ones work. Don't sit in the middle.
Just touch, yeah, yours is working.
Testing. Hadn't come on yet, no.
Morning. There we go.
Good morning.
Morning, everybody. Rob Gunter with the Department of Planning and Zoning. As Ms. Dobson mentioned, we're here for QAC Place this morning. The applicant is proposing an administrative subdivision as well as a major large lot subdivision to create 10 new lots in the NC 20 or Neighborhood Conservation Zoning District. Before I dive any deeper into this presentation, I can give you a brief refresher on the project history. On September 9th of 2021, the Planning Commission originally granted preliminary plan approval for this project. There were some questions about the vote that happened that day. Ultimately, on October 14th of 21, the Planning Commission reaffirmed the preliminary subdivision approval. Some time passed, and on May 12th of 2023, this project was submitted for final review. During that review, staff noted a difference in the extent of the woodlands on the plans that were submitted versus updated aerials that had happened in that time. So the plans needed to be updated to account for the additional woodland area. Those revisions are reflected on the current plans, and the applicant is back requesting preliminary subdivision approval for the revised plan this time. Also, during the time between 2021 and 2023, I believe there was some legal action that happened. I'll let one of the many lawyers in the room discuss that. Chris can do it now, or we can wait till I'm done. That's completely up to you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, we'll wait for you.
Okay. All right, moving on. So the project's located on Kent Island. It's south and east of the Bay City subdivision, north of the American Legion, and west of Mattapique School. More precisely, you can see the two yellow highlighted areas. Tax map 56, parcels 38 and 300, located south of Stafford Road and Victoria Drive. As I said earlier, there's an administrative subdivision component of this project where the applicant wants to transfer 1.165 acres from parcel 300 to parcel 38. And after that administrative subdivision, parcel 38 will total 7.834 acres. So if you follow the fancy new red cursor, the white line is going to be removed. That's the existing property line separating parcel 38 and 300. And the black dashed line will be the new parcel line being created. The properties are both zoned NC20, and they are both located within the Chester-Stevensville growth area. In the NC20, the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet on 7.834 acres. That would permit up to 17 lots. The applicant's proposing 10. All the lot sizes are shown there. You can see all are above the minimum lot size requirements. August 19th of 2021, sewer allocation was granted to the project. The stormwater will be addressed by a combination of practices. APFO, the adequate school capacity exists for the project. And since there are fewer than 20 lots being proposed, a determination of adequacy for transportation, water, and sewer is not required. Looking at the plan, you can see the numbers 1 through 10 are the approximate location of the proposed house pads. The orange dashed line is a sidewalk. There are street trees. There is a non-tidal wetland and its associated buffer. There is no disturbance proposed. The black striped areas, the forest conservation areas, and the green stormwater feature is part of all of the combination of features that will drain this property.
Sorry.
As I stated, the plans needed to be updated to amend the woodland areas. The result of those revisions that are reflected on the current submittal shown on the left result in an additional 1.23 acres of forest conservation area. The new forest conservation area shown on the left in the striped hatched areas, you can see is definitely different than the right side. The new totals 4.077 acres versus the previous submittal of 2.85 acres. That results because there's more woods on the property, therefore more needs to be preserved. So the homes range from 2,200 to 4,000 square feet, and with prices starting in the mid 500s. Staff assumes that this is still accurate. No further information was provided. So if this is different, the applicant can speak to that. If you have any questions or would like me to go back to any slides, I'm happy to do so, or I can turn it over to Chris for legal or the applicant for further discussions.
Mr. Gunt, did you mind going back to the Google Earth satellite image showing the, yes, okay. So that wetland, that non-tidal wetland is forested?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Drummond, can you?
That's Joe. We haven't, the county, well, I can say, the county has been involved in the lawsuit, and it was brought by the Bay City property
Could you
owners.
talk up a little bit?
Okay,
please?
is this not working? Brought by the Bay City Property Owners Association, alleging, and again, I'm not, Pat Thompson really handled the case, not me, that the Victoria Drive did not go to the property line. It's the argument that we've been hearing for quite some time. Circuit Court agreed with the position of the county and the applicant that the Victoria Drive, the public road, does go to the property line. That's on appeal now to the Court of Special, I'm sorry, not called that anymore, the Appellate Court of Maryland.
Mr. Stevens?
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Joseph Stevens on behalf of the applicant, Playcheck Place, and Lindsay Dixon, who's the builder, many of you know. Just to elaborate on what Mr. Drummond said, Judge Knight in the Circuit Court determined that Victoria is in fact a public road and that it's available for access and use publicly. That's what the whole litigation was about. That is under appeal at the Maryland Appellate Court, but right now that's the law of the case. And so that's why we're proceeding forward. It was a very thorough decision and very fact-intensive. We don't anticipate anything changing because the judge made findings of fact, and that's really what this is based on. And really, that's the law right now before the commission. But a few things that I want to go over briefly is, there's been some misconception. Social media gets a little abound sometimes, but this is a 10-lot subdivision in an NC zone. It's between the Legion and Bay City, and it's in a growth area. It's got sewer and water. It's in the planned sewer service area, and we're back before you today for preliminary for two reasons, really. The first is because we made some revisions to it, as Mr. Gunther had indicated, and this has been under a microscope, so we want to be cautious as how we proceed and bring that back before you. And candidly, we think that the revisions work to our favor. It's more woodland protected on the site. The second reason is because, as you may recall, is your preliminary approval vote was a little bit called into question, and that went up to the Board of Appeals under appeal. We filed a motion to dismiss, saying that it's a preliminary approval. You cannot it's not final decision. You got to make a final decision. The Board of Appeals agreed with that, but they were also, in their 26-page opinion, very concerned about how the vote happened and whether it could have been corrected or what should have happened. So if I were to just jump to final now and go to the Board of Appeals, I'd be arguing that same matter at the Board of Appeals, and if it's appealed, which I assume it may be. So we'd like to bring it back before you and present the revised subdivision to you with the additional woodland protection. I also have the project stormwater engineer here, so he will be able to give you a brief overview of stormwater and show that it's moving away from the Bay City residents. We have an easement from the Legion, where they've granted us an easement, so we're moving south with stormwater. And then I have Mark Keeley here with Traffic Concepts. We are not required to do an APF study for traffic. We're under the threshold. 10 lots is 10 lots under the threshold. It's a 20-lot threshold. But we did one anyway. So he's going to give you an overview of that and what his conclusions were from that. So that's what we have for you today, and I'm turning over to Barry Griffith.
Thanks. Barry Griffith, Lane Engineering. We started work on this site close to 20 years ago. There were some previous development applications that the concept plan that
Are you going to have to?
You're going to be asked to get that microphone in front.
there were some previous applications that never really got past sketch or concept plan in the past. But we started in earnest on this particular layout back in 2020. And the preliminary plat that you all approved in 2021 was based on a woodland delineation that was done by us and survey in 2016. So a little history on the woodlands on this site. Back in the 50s and 60s, this was a farm just like the rest of Bay City. And then in 1957, there was actually a baseball field on this parcel 38 at one time, as Bay City was just starting to get laid out and developed. During the 60s and 70s, this particular property started having volunteer growth on it. It was no longer farmed, and it just started turning into a forest and woodland. Sometime in the early 2000s, there was a storm event, a Horatio or a tornado, whatever it was. It took out a section right in the middle of parcel 38 of woods and knocked a lot of trees down. So when we started looking at this property about the same time, we couldn't even get a survey crew in there. It was nothing but deadfall and invasives and overgrown, and we could not even get in to survey the property. So in 2016, Lindsay, with permission from the county, was able to go in and clear out all that deadfall and invasive. So there was a cleared area kind of in the middle of this with a woodland around the perimeter. That's what we based the initial preliminary plat on that you approved a couple years ago. However, since that time, while the project's been involved with litigation and lots of other negotiations with Bay City, that property has started to regrow, the area that had been previously cleared. And staff made a determination when we filed for final plat in the spring that, hey, we need to look at this because this might now meet the definition in zoning code 18166 of a woodland. And sure enough, it was determined that it did. So as a result of that, we're revising this plat to basically reflect what is now determined to be the accurate delineation of woodlands under 18166, which is kind of a vague description, but it's a description. And the result is that we are not changing the lots, we're not changing lot sizes, we're not changing the road configurations, we're not really doing anything other than limiting the amount of land that can be cleared on lots 3 through 10. So each lot has a defined building envelope, and everything outside that envelope is for the driveway, the house, the grading associated with the house, stormwater management easements associated with the grading, and obviously we're having to clear for the road and the sidewalk that Rob had described, and for where we're building the stormwater management feature. So the end result is the woodland calculation increased on parcel 38 by 2.2 acres. That changed our maximum clearing allowance of 40% of that from 2.7 acres to 1.9 acres. So we are now revising our proposed clearing to go from 2.6 acres to 1.8 acres. And our total forest conservation area is now going to increase from 2.9 acres to about 4 acres. So we're going to have more trees and more protected trees. And all of the woodlands that we're protecting, whether it's through the Forest Conservation Act requirements or the 18166 zoning requirements, they're all going to be placed under a forest conservation easement that's going to be recorded and enforceable by the county. And as staff has worked with us, we've indicated we would do, it would also be incorporated into the deeds for each property and into the HOA documents associated with the community, so that those woods are known by everybody building and moving in to be protected woodlands, not to be disturbed. And those woodlands do include that isolated non-tidal wetland pocket that exists on the larger parcel 3. So that won't be disturbed. That's, you know, our lots range anywhere from 20,000 to 60,000 square feet. Our neighbors in Bay City, they have mainly 15,000 square foot lots, some larger. Our density is about 1.7 DUs or 1.2 DUs per acre. So this is by no means a high density subdivision. It's as intended in the neighborhood conservation zone. It's an infill subdivision designed to reflect lot sizes and house types that are similar to what's around the other NC zones. I'm going to come back in a minute and talk a little bit more about some other aspects of the project that affect its or or relate to its compliance with zoning and comp plan. But I'd like to step aside for just a moment and have Jarrett Byer, who's our PE who worked on this design, step up and just kind of explain to you in layman's terms very generally how we are handling drainage and stormwater management on this site. It's been a lot of comments made about what this property is going to do to the neighbors in terms of drainage. So I want to try to alleviate those concerns and have Jared explain this to you.
Before he comes up, tell me what that road is between lots 4 and 5.
Lots 4.
It's a drainage easement.
That is
Oh, I'm
actually,
sorry.
that is a sewer easement for a tap that eventually the Legion can use.
But
That-
it's not a road.
It's not a road.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Jared, stand up there. Does that work?
Sure, Jared, you can do it right there. Should work.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Good morning. For this project, we're required to address.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. Jared Byer, Lane Engineering, project engineer. For this project, we're required to address stormwater quality and quantity regulations. So for quality, we fully meet ESD with a bioswale between lots 6 and 7, and then lot by lot stormwater features. The entirety of the road and the sidewalks and the majority of the driveways will be conveyed to this bioswale by curb and gutter and pipes. Each lot will meet ESD requirements at the time of building permit application. Our client has provided us with 10 house types, and we have chosen the largest of the house types for each lot, and then determine what practices could be used to address stormwater quality for those lots. And this is detailed in our site plan. For the quantity, there's 2 outfall points. There's one to the south, which you can see up there in the purple. And then there's one to the southwest, which you can see in the yellow area. The one that's in the purple is an on-site wetland. And then the one to the southwest is the one has the significant concern. I met with the county on this site to address these concerns. And we walked the site, we walked the adjacent areas and talked about that. We are being required to address the 100-year storm event runoff, which is in addition to your standard 2 and 10-year runoff management. And we meet that and we exceed that, and we significantly reduce the existing runoff from the site at both outfall points.
So just the general requirement is only to manage the 10-year storm?
That's correct.
Okay. The county, because of the area, wanted you to manage the 100-year storm?
That's correct. And we do that and reduce it.
Thank you, Jared. I'm just going to wrap up and reiterate a few things that Joe said. The property is in a growth area. It's not in the critical area. It has neighborhood conservation zoning, which promotes single-family residential home subdivision and development. We're there with public sewer and water. Both are readily available. We have plans to extend them on the site. The allocation's been reserved. This is a designated priority funding area for the county for new growth. The APFO issues related to schools have been addressed. Mark Keeley will talk a little bit about traffic, even though, as Joe indicated, we're not required to do a traffic study. We have done some analysis here. There are no rare, threatened, or endangered species here per state and federal records. We have no 100-year floodplain on the property. The non-tidal wetlands that exist, that's an isolated pocket of forested non-tidal wetlands on lots 3 and 4. They will be in the forest conservation easement and protected as such. No disturbances proposed. As Jared has indicated, we are not going to have any adverse drainage impact on our neighbors. The stormwater management easement that we need for the Legion property has been executed and is now in place with the Legion. In return, Mr. Dixon is going to, we have a companion administrative subdivision plat that you all don't see. We're going to be giving the Legion a small, narrow spike strip that currently exists as a part of parcel 38 between two properties the Legion owns, just on the north side of their building. That way they will have contiguous use of their property.
That strip, Barry, that essentially runs through their parking lot, right?
Kind of, yeah.
It splits their parking lot.
runs
So
right
they don't own their whole parking lot, and so we're going to clean up their title as part of that agreement.
And then I just want to wrap up and say, you know, this is infill development, all right? This is what we want in the county. This is a great location for it. And, you know, as Joe indicated, there's been a lot of misinformation on social media about what this project is or isn't. And one thing I've read is that, you know, we're developing a conservation area. Well, this is not a conservation area currently. However, with the approval of this subdivision, it will be a conservation area. It will have 4 acres of protected woodlands and wetlands, and 10 single-family homes. So, any questions?
Is the cul-de-sac approximately where the new growth is, or was, I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's kind of right in there. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's interesting. If you look at the history of the air photos, and I have some here, there's that. This is a iffy whether it meets the definition of woodlands or not, but we're treating it as if it does.
Based on the fact that they're not mature, old-growth trees,
Right.
they're sort of smaller age.
A lot of volunteer
a little more
growth.
sparse.
On that portion that was previously cleaned up from the storm damage. Around the perimeter, the trees are more substantial, and we've always been proposing to protect those. So there's essentially a wooded perimeter around the entire back of these lots to the Bay City neighborhood.
Okay, let's hear about traffic, because that was a major bone of
Well, why don't you
contention.
sit there, Barry? Mark will
Okay.
go right there. Yeah, Mark Healy did some traffic analysis. As you know, that was a big topic of discussion. The project takes access on Victoria, public road, according to the courts, and goes through a controlled intersection, which is the light and at Bay City. The property also accesses, has abuts Maryland Route 8, and it's always been much less preferential from state highway standpoint, planning, county, everybody, to try and take access on Route 8. I mean, that create a whole nother access. With that, we had Mark, we asked Mark to do an analysis. He went out there, he did counts, he actually had camera footage of it because he's doing a lot of work in the area for other projects. So, Mark, why don't you go ahead and summarize?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Mark Keeley. I'm a project manager with Traffic Concepts. So what I did was a traffic brief. It's not a full traffic impact study because we're 10 lots, 20 or less is exempt from APFO. And I guess if you translate that into number of lots, if you're less than 25 trips, you don't have to do a traffic study. So what I did was trip generation calculations for 10 single-family units using the ITE trip generation manual. The peak hours, according to ITE, are 7 to 9, 4 to 6, 7 to 9 a.m., 4 to 6 p.m. So 10 houses in the peak hour generates 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. peak hour trips. So we're well under 25 trips, and again, we're less than 20 lots. The next thing I did was look at Maryland 8 at Bay City, the intersection there. We did traffic counts September 14th when schools were in session under good weather conditions. So we install cameras and they collect traffic on each movement. We send the counts out to a company that actually does the counts, and they send them back to us. The analysis, I did two methods to analyze the levels of service capacity at this intersection. One was the critical lane analysis that's required by the county and state highway. And essentially what that does, it generates critical trips. So you look at the throughs and the opposing lefts, and it gives you a number of critical trips. And those critical trips are assigned a letter value, A through F. In this case, the AM peak hour, 7 to 9, was level service B, and during the PM it was an A. And it's a little worse during the AMs because of the school trips in the adjacent school. So then I took a further step and analyzed the intersection with the highway capacity software. So the HCM software, you plug in to the software the volume, and then you put in the signal timing. So we get the timing from the State Highway Administration, and you let the model run, and it calculates delay per vehicle. And that delay is then assigned a letter grade A through F. So in the morning, the average delay is 17.8 seconds, which is a B, and then in the evening it was 13.1 seconds, also a B level service. So the intersections existing is operating with adequate levels of service. If you combine the trips, which I said were 9 a.m. and 11 p.m., those trips aren't going to change the level of service. The good thing about the highway capacity, it also provides queuing analyses, a 95th percentile queue during the peak hours. And the highest queue that we found was about 154 feet, and that equates to about 6 vehicles, assuming a vehicle is 25 feet long, which is, an average of trucks, buses, and vehicles. So the queue was, as I said, was about 6 feet, and that queue, because the level of service is B or better, that queue clears out with each signal cycle. So, and I witnessed this on the video that we got. The traffic queue along Bay City eastbound, that traffic clears out. So with each signal, so it's not double cycling, so you're not sitting through more than one red. And then in terms of access, State Highway has an access management policy, which really follows the functional road classification. So residential developments would access a local road. Those local roads feed into minor collector roads. Those minor collector goes into a major collector, into an arterial. So that's the normal flow of traffic that is best for local developments. You don't want local roads feeding onto major collector or arterial roads, because those roads primarily deal with through traffic, so your mobility. So you're trying to get that traffic to freeways and higher functionally classified roads. So to avoid unnecessary intersection controls, if you have the ability for a local road to access a neighborhood collector or minor collector road, that's what you want to do. So it wouldn't be appropriate for this project to have direct access to Maryland 8. So I conclude that the 10 lots, the 10 single-family lots, is going to have a minimal impact on the operations of Maryland 108 or Maryland 8 at Bay City.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Mark, I had a quick question. I mean, in terms of the lots getting to Victoria and then going out the Bay City at the light, you wouldn't anticipate that they'd be going through the neighborhood and going down Stafford Road in terms of what the distribution.
Yeah, they're going to take, traffic's like water. It's going to take the easiest and best route to get out to, in this case, Maryland 8.
All I had. Barry's going to wrap up and then we'll be done.
I'm just going back in my mind thinking about the testimony we had last time, and it was like, people were complaining that they wait 20 minutes to get out of the development as it is, and according to him, I mean, I'm sure we have a red light less than 20 minutes.
And he went down and he did the analysis and he put cameras on it, for one, and two, he's got a level of service which shows that it moves pretty free flow in terms of B level of service in the morning. And then, you know, I mean, we know that there's school buses. There's schools right across the street, so you're going to have a 20-minute window that you may have, you know, things that occur, you know, as a result of the school bus picking kids up, whatever they might be. So, but you can't do a traffic analysis based on for that little period of time. So anyway,
Okay.
I'll let Barry sum up.
I summed up.
Okay. Done. Oh, I thought, that's right, you did. You did that. You summed up after your.
Do we have anything from State Highway?
I can't remember if the file has SHA comments or not. I don't even know if they would have reviewed it because it's
Oh.
not on
Okay.
It's not on a state highway.
not on a state road.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
We're here and available to answer questions if you have them, okay? Thank you.
Public comment? Thank you. Paul Plasek? Dr. Paul Plasek.
Useful, I don't know what I plan to say.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Paul Plasek, I've lived in Stevensville for 46 years. My wife and I and son all live in Stevensville. The name Plasek Place is really a gift to us from the developer, just because we had a cooperative deal for years. Our actual business dealings ended 4 years ago when I sold the 1.7 acre parcel there up in the right corner to Lindsay Dixon. I will not receive any compensation for being here or saying what I'm going to say now or afterwards. I'd be very pleased and complimented if that subdivision had our name. Wow, it's a really class subdivision. We live in Queen Anne Colony now, 46 years in fact. I thought you had to be dead to have a subdivision named after you, but I'm not ready yet. I'm 78. Becky and I married 46 years ago, moved to Kent Island, live in the same house in Queen Anne Colony. We fell in love with the island, became very active in the life of the island. But we bought that property for $20,000 40 years ago. But it had a derelict house. It was a historic house built in 1840. So we went to the Maryland Historic Trust, got a loan, borrowed $100,000 to put that old place back together. We were told it would be cheaper to build new. And it's in 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears, we made it a really nice historic house. And that'll stay as is. It's not being chopped up or knocked down or anything. It stays on its own half-acre lot. But I always knew that it had subdivision potential. And I myself tried to use the access from Victoria and Stafford for that back acre for 2 lots. Well, you can see why I was unable. I don't have the kind of background that you've seen presented today. So, and then 4 years ago, all the joys of being a landlord of that wonderful house kind of evaporated. If you've been a landlord, you know. But anyway, we became members of the Kent Island Heritage Society and the historic Stevensville Arts and Entertainment District. I'm an officer in both. My wife started the Kent Island Photo Club. She's active and a director in the Kent Island Federation of Art. We're really involved, and we love the island. Would never do anything that would hurt it. Under the proposed plan, that rear part of the property.
Sorry, Mr. Plasek, your time is up.
Okay. I endorse the project.
Thank you. John Gott?
Good morning. John Gott, resident of Bay City for 21 years. As counsel for the developer has brought to your attention that the currently litigation over Stafford and Victoria is ongoing, I would think it would be highly unprofessional of the planning committee to grant any further approval until this litigation is resolved. Number two, stormwater runoff. I have serious concerns about this. None of you, I believe, live in Bay City. There has been ongoing flooding issues at the intersection of Bay City Road in Victoria and Bay City Road in Chesapeake ever since I've lived there. Those flooding concerns grew substantially when Mattapeake Elementary was opened 20 years ago, and the runoff from their retention pond, which is at a lower grade level than this current development being proposed, runs under Route 8, runs through a county-maintained culvert under the intersection of Chesapeake and Victoria, Chesapeake and Bay City and Victoria and Bay City, which substantially floods. This water then mitigates itself down to Chenoweth to a lot that the county owns, which is wetlands, and then drains into the bay. And going through all of your correspondence that you've had, I don't see any indication that any of the residents on the 800 block of Chesapeake have been asked about their flooding concerns in their backyards, which is substantial during a heavy rainstorm. Since this development is a higher elevation, and looking at your stormwater management plan with the retention pond on the closer side of 8, there has to be a bleed off on that pond if it becomes filled. The bleed off would go onto a culvert onto Route 8, which would then go down to Bay City Road and then exacerbate the current flooding conditions that we have. Those are my concerns there. Also, the runoff would run off of their lot down onto the culverts that run along Chesapeake. Then the culvert system, all of it drains down into the bay at Chenoweth, and also it drains to the bay down at Bayside Drive in Chesapeake, but because the elevation changes, all the water runs on a northerly section. And the last time I checked, if you're at a higher elevation, water runs downhill. As far as traffic concerns, with the traffic study concerns, there is no 20-minute backup at that intersection. However, there is minimal 2-cycle hold-ups with the school buses in the morning, but it is of a minimal impact. I would ask that the Planning Commission talk to the residents on Chesapeake Drive and actually walk Chesapeake after a heavy rain, and also look at our intersections during a heavy rain, which would be exacerbated by a high tide, because they cannot drain at a high tide when the drainage is below the level of the water. Thank you.
David Blitzer?
Good morning.
Good morning.
David Blitzer, here on behalf of the Bay City Property Owners Association, which is the HOA for Bay City. Some of you know who were here 2 years ago. There were a number of issues that were expressed by many Bay City residents who showed up for the last Planning Commission preliminary approval meeting on this matter. And those included exacerbation of existing traffic issues inside their community, increase in existing nuisance flooding, safety issues concerning children and other pedestrians in Bay City, where they already have issues with speeding, a lack of contribution from these new properties towards the maintenance of Bay City's private roads and private amenities, and the inability for the community to control access from outside residents to their private facilities, including a boat launch, a park. All these are private facilities maintained with dues paid by the people that live in Bay City. There's no way that they can avoid having these new homeowners who do not contribute any dues or HOA fees towards the HOA, prevent them from utilizing these facilities without actually assisting in maintaining them. But I really want to talk first and foremost myself about the pending litigation here, which was brought up by counsel for the developer. It is true that there is pending litigation here. It is on appeal right now to the Intermediate Appellate Court, the Appellate Court of Maryland. I want to make clear that the sole assertion that the county has raised in that litigation as to why this section of road is public road is that the county has adversely possessed it. The public has adversely possessed it from this private community. It is otherwise a private road. That's the sole basis. We believe the circuit court got it wrong. We believe that the American Appellate Court will reverse that decision. With that being said, I also want to note quickly the forest calculation, as this is why this project is back before you all for preliminary approval. The only way that the forest calculation meets the requirements of this of the county code is by looking at the American Legion property as a total forest acreage and calculating the small portion that's in the easement for this project on that property compared to the total forest on that property. They don't own that property. They have the right to use a small portion of the easement. If you look at the clearing to be conducted on that small portion of the easement, and then the clearing to be conducted on the main property, parcel 38, they are going to be clearing in excess of 40% of the total forest, existing forest, on the net tract area. That's in their own words. Sheet 5 of the subdivision states that itself, that they are going to be clearing in excess of 40% of the 6.93 acres on the net tract area, the net site where the project will take place.
Thank you. Michael Timmons?
Morning. My name is Michael Timmons. I live at 715 Victoria Drive. I've lived there for 37 years. Myself, my neighbors on Victoria Drive will be adversely affected by this project by putting extra traffic. They talk about 1 or 2 vehicles 2 or 3 times a day. I leave my home sometimes 5 or 6 times a day. Everybody that's involved in this project, from the American Legion, they get a piece of property, they get a sewer tap. Mr. Plasek got to subdivide his property, got a check where he just stated he could not subdivide his property and get 2 other lots off of it. But we'll let a major subdivision come in and get 10 lots. There's something wrong here. There's too much development on Ken Island. Traffic is a problem on Ken Island. It will affect myself and my neighbors adversely. I don't have much more to say, but you should reject this property. Everybody gets something. American Legion, the church, they all have access to Route 8. American Legion has 2 access points. They could access this community from Route 8, but choose to come through a private community and a road that is up to litigation to get to here. I just don't think it is correct. Like I said, everybody gets something from it, except for my neighbors, myself, and my community. So please take this into consideration today. Any other, I don't have anything else to say, but this is from my heart, and this is, I didn't read from a statement. Y'all please consider rejecting this proposal. Thank you so much.
Charles Crandall? Morning.
Chuck Crandall. I live at 703 Victoria Drive, Stevensville. Been there since '99. Don't typically have a problem with the houses being built there. That seems to be muddled a little bit. We have a problem with the traffic coming into Victoria Drive, and I'm a firm believer that Stafford Road does come all the way through and Victoria butts into it, which will be taken care of at the appellate court. But it's not just the impact study is fine, but I'm also a builder, so I understand the builder side of it. But I also know that in building 10 lots, houses like that, it's just not people's cars that go up there. Drywall people, there's deck builders, there's plumbing people, there's concrete trucks, there's delivery trucks. And right there at the intersection of Bay City and Victoria Drive is where the buses have had to now, in the morning, sit catty corner across Bay City because of all the traffic that's there. To allow these kids that are on our street, there's 7 or 8 of them on that little block of Victoria Drive that's affected. They walk down with no sidewalks, and they stand at that corner to wait to get a bus. and you got vehicles going back and forth, which they have already said is the peak time, 7 to 9. And I watch these buses now have to pull in and cross. If we have buses coming down Victoria, crossing over Bay City to block it, while you've got lumber deliveries, you've got plumbing deliveries, you've got HVAC deliveries, you've got everything else coming up through there, that's dangerous to our children, especially when they can access it from Route 8. And if they access it from Route 8, they're their own little deal, and that's fine. But when they start accessing it and using our streets, which is Stafford, or coming onto Victoria Drive when they really don't have to, it becomes they're using our stuff and they're putting our children at risk for their own independent benefit. And I've just seen that for the next 2 or 3 years, these houses will be being built because they don't have enough money to build 10 spec houses, I can tell you that. I know what that is. That this is going to be a constant problem throughout. And I urge for the safety of these children and for the congestion at that intersection, because that is the only intersection that has a light. So all the people in the 750 some houses, most of them come down from even from the other side of Irene. They come down because they can get out in the morning. So you're adding one intersection of 750 some houses taken up, and then you're adding not just 10 houses with 1.1. You're adding that with all the commercial vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Driscoll? I think it's Driscoll. I might be saying it wrong.
It's either my penmanship or... Good morning. My name's Michael Dreisidel. I'm the president of the Bay City HOA, Bay City Property Owners Association. So here we are again, going through this. We kind of hit the reset button with the new zoning. I want to be clear on a couple things. Just kind of reiterate what my friends and colleagues said. We're not against development, okay? However, there's some things that are fundamentally wrong with accessing Bay City, okay? We have an open court date in the Appellate Court of Maryland to litigate the ownership of Stafford Road, okay? Nobody really talked about that today, but there's some conflicting views. Okay, we have documentation from State Highway where the ownership is, and we believe that we own it, okay? Honestly, I believe that if you voted for this right now, while there's a pending court case, you'd be doing not only the residents of Bay City disservice, but the residents of Queen Anne's County, okay? Getting back to the development, we're not against the development going in. We just don't want it going through our neighborhood for safety reasons. Chuck mentioned there's 8 to 10 kids on that street, okay? We already have a traffic problem. We have a big speeding problem, okay? Our friends that are for this development came prepared, okay? That traffic study was well put together, but there's some things fundamentally wrong with it. It doesn't take in consideration friends, family, Amazon, trash, whatever else you want to add to it that is a normal day of life, okay? It doesn't truly represent the amount of traffic that's going to be increased going down Victoria. Additionally, I think it's naive to think that after this goes in, that those 10 residents, friends and family, whoever's visiting, is not going to want to go down Stafford. I could tell you, anybody who lives on Route 8, especially going from a 2-lane to 1-lane right next to the Valero, sees how people drive, merging into 1 lane, okay? What's going to happen is Victoria will be backed up from Bay City, and then people are going to try to hopscotch down Stafford to Chesapeake to circumvent the traffic. You can see that happening now. So with all due respect, I respectfully request you deny this until we complete our litigation next month. And it'd be nice to see an alternate route going out to Route 8 so they could access Route 8. Thank you.
Okay, Bruce, do you have anything?
So we have 3 people on Zoom. Justine Kohler's going to be first. Justine, if you can unmute your mic, please.
Hello. Is it okay to talk now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Justine, go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, I'm Justine Kohler. I am a resident of Bay City, current resident. Been here about 10 years now. I just wanted to say that I'm against the proposal, as well as a few of my neighbors that weren't able to attend, but I would like to echo what my fellow residents have said about the traffic. And it is an issue. I know the study has been done well and everything, but something I think that should be also taken into account is the amount of accidents that we've had occur over the last few years, just with the infrastructure being built, new infrastructure, and I think we would need to work on the maybe the current infrastructure and traffic situations that we have now and issues that we have with them before we consider putting in new. And then that's all I have. I'd just like to say that I do oppose the proposal. Or yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up will be Kim A.
Hi there, Kim Adams, resident in Bay City, live at 604 Victoria Drive. Again, I'd like to echo my opposition to not necessarily, like Mike mentioned, not necessarily the development itself, but the use of Bay City's roads to access this development. Main concern is traffic, traffic and safety, and basically I would say that when folks, when Bay City Drive gets backed up, folks will go to Irene, and Irene is extremely a dangerous intersection. And honestly, I won't use it because I'm afraid to make a left turn out of there unless I'm making a right turn. I won't use Irene. I think if you look back at the history and currently, I mean, an accident just happened at Ellendale last week. So I'm concerned about the added traffic, but mostly I'm concerned with adding traffic through Bay City. It's really ridiculous to think that you can add homes to roadways that were never designed. There's no infrastructure that's there to accommodate the traffic. I think a limited study of what the traffic is does not adequately depict a daily basis of what we're dealing with here. So I'm opposed.
Okay, thank you.
And then our last on Zoom will be Christine Carter.
Hi, my name is Christine Carter. I live at 308 Oregon Road. I'm actually in a community further down Route 8. I am opposed to the general overall. It's more of a broader concern. I am highly concerned about the removal of the forestry, as the one person mentioned who was in the blue blazer. If you look at the American Legion and you are looking at the bigger forestry aspect, it is a huge concern of mine that all of the woodlands, even though it sounds like a great plan, they're doing all this extra stuff that they don't have to do. On the grand scale of things, it's huge. The storm runoff, I am highly concerned about. Ultimately, it all ends up in the Chesapeake Bay. I love where I live. I am not opposed to development. But the infrastructure is not here. The stormwater management is a very large concern. Route 8 traffic is an extremely high concern of mine. People die on Route 8, and every year, something that shouldn't be happening the way in the numbers that it does. And a considerable amount of that is on the north end of Route 8. I am very concerned about it. I think that I'm worried about the precedent. I'm worried about more and more divisions coming, and the bigger concern of traffic and loving where you live and being able to shop here. And the people who are moving in, what money are they really bringing when they can't get around the island to go shopping and to invest in the local community? Just on a grand scale, I would like to see some further development of the overall concern of traffic, the safety of our people, more crosswalks with, you know, an actual light that they can press a button. There doesn't need to be a stoplight for the cars necessarily, but for the pedestrians, so they can actually utilize the parks and the trails that are there that are built for us. And people are afraid to walk across the street because they're gonna get hit. So that is my overall concern. And I just wanted to express my displeasure for this particular plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all we have on Zoom.
Okay, so it's the end of public comment. How about discussion? Do you have something, Rob?
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify, I'm sure Mr. Griffith is getting ready to come up and do the same thing, about the woodland calculations. So forest conservation and woodland calculations found in 18166 are separate entities. So the calculations in 66 are applied per parcel. So the total net tract area is irrelevant for the woodland calculation portion of this. In your staff report, I've listed out the woodland calculations for the previous plan as well as the current plan, and they do meet the woodland calculations. Just clarify that.
Okay. Do you have any other things you would like to clarify, you or Mr. Stevens?
There was some question about stormwater that came up, which was.
Can you come up and,
You've
Or
addressed
was
it.
if there's a question on stormwater, I got Mr. Meyer here. If not, that's fine, because
Okay.
there's some issues raised. And then the only other clarification.
you have to talk into the mic.
The only other clarification I want to make is that Victoria is a county road under law. And it's referred to as being Bay City's road. It's maintained by the county. That's why the judge determined what they determined. They tar and chip it. They plow it. They have sewer lines in it. They take care of drainage in it. That's the reason why it's been determined to be a county road. Thank you.
Okay.
The only thing I would add is that at the moment, Victoria Drive ends at this property. That's what the court has decided. Now, the Appellate Court of Maryland could come to a different conclusion, as Mr. Blitzer says, but at the moment, that is the law of that case, and therefore it is the law that, in my opinion, the Planning Commission should be following. Certainly, you could say, well, we would prefer to wait till the outcome of the appeal. However, as matters stand now, this property has access to a public road.
Madam Chair, may I ask Mr. Porter, since he's in the front row, to address some of the concerns about stormwater for the surrounding residents and sort of outline the county's review and position of water flow leaving this property and potential impacts downgrade?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Trey Porter with Queen Anne's County Department of Public Works. We've reviewed this property several times over the past several years. This property does have some flooding issues in the community to the south and west, and that's one of the reasons why we required the developer and the consultant to design to the 100-year storm. We typically don't do that unless there's an existing flooding concern. Basically, what they've demonstrated through their calculations is that the post-developed runoff for the 210 and 100-year storm is less than what it is pre-developed. I also will say that the drainage from this site, and land engineering and Jared Beyer can correct him if this is wrong, but the vast majority of this, and maybe the very edge of the entrance, might drain backwards into Victoria in that direction, but the vast majority of this goes to the drainage easement that you can see in the black on the it's kind of outlined in black on the sheet that's up there right now. Yes, that's exactly where it goes. So this does not contribute to the concerns that we have at the Bay City and Victoria intersection. There's known flooding there. There's also Chesapeake Avenue also has flooding issues there as well. This particular development does not exacerbate those floods. That area is a troubling area because it's a combination of both tidal flooding in one direction and rainfall flooding in the other direction. It is one of several areas in the county where we're very aware of it, and we are monitoring it, and we have some maintenance plans in the future to help but not probably eliminate that flooding. So that's, I'm also, one of the other areas of concern too, if I could just address traffic really quick, because I know there's a lot of discussion about traffic. Again, this particular development is under 20 units, so there's no requirement for them to do a traffic impact study. They did so voluntarily in a way to present to you some factual analysis on traffic impacts. And I will say that the way that traffic design and consulting is done is they look to the future, and this is what state highway, this is more of a state highway issue when it comes to Route 18 and the accidents and the traffic they have there. But what they do is they look at what the development potential is. They look at infill lots. They look at, like, after the ski, the Southern Ken Island, after the sewer program was approved, and there was a certain number of available units in Southern Ken Island to be developed, they look at that as infill potential. So there's a certain amount of residential potential that they look at, and they go out 20 years, 50 years, what have you. And this particular lot, being that it's urban commercial and being that it's in a growth area and all that, it's figured into the design. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate and understand anecdotal evidence that there are accidents, there are moments, incidents, accidents, and so forth, where it's frustrating. I live on Ken Island. I'm very aware of those frustrations. What we can't design, and a consultant can't design based on incidents. We have to look at an overall picture, and that's where the level of service comes in. So there's two things in play here on these roads, and that's level of service, which is your capacity to move traffic, and then there's also safety concerns. Again, I don't want to speak for state highway, but when regulators, state, local, whatever, look at roads, we look at the projections about infill development and what could potentially happen, and so those are taken into account. I just wanted to kind of give you some background on how we look at road improvements and look at road safety and capacity and all that. So if you have any specific questions about either stormwater or roads, I'm certainly available to answer that. I didn't, listening to the testimony earlier from Lane Engineering, the consultant, I don't have any comment other than to say that what they said seems to be factual and accurate. So
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated.
Any discussion, more discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I'd like to ask counsel, what are our options here, understanding the pending litigation? If we approve it and the litigation goes one way or the other, what happens? Are we better off deferring this decision?
Well, that is a judgment that you will ultimately need to make. This is a preliminary subdivision approval. It's not final.
That was another clarification, because in one place in our paperwork it says it's preliminary, in another place it says it's final.
Oh, no, okay, well, that's a typo.
Preliminary, correct?
The typo, it's preliminary.
Preliminary. I understand because of the confusion that was created a couple of years ago over the vote, it makes sense to me why the applicant would want to clear up that potential procedural glitch. It makes sense. It eliminates, arguably eliminates one appeal point. Were this final subdivision approval, a request for it, you might be more concerned about the outcome of the appeal now pending at the Appellate Court of Maryland. On the other hand, the applicant should clearly understand, if this were final, that it proceeds at its own risk, such that if it decided to seek a grading permit, for example, to begin building the connection to Victoria Road, and the Appellate Court of Maryland comes to a conclusion different than that of the Circuit Court, they'd have to put the property back in the condition it was before they started. That's always a risk for someone who wants to proceed while litigation is pending. So, I mean, it is my view that we need to proceed on the facts as they exist today. And as I'm repeating myself, the fact regarding the access to Victoria Road as it exists today is the Circuit Court's decision.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Could I explain the applicant's position? And I'm not going to rehash what you said, Chris. I want to clarify for the Planning Commission that the applicant is proceeding with approvals and fully recognizes that if the court overturns Circuit Court, that they have to go back and start over again. If they don't have access to that road, they will not proceed with construction because that risk would be too great until the appeals are over. I mean, they wouldn't get loans for it. Right. So
they won't get that. That's true. As a practical matter, no lending institution is going to give them a dime as long as that case is pending.
We believe that, and the law, as Chris said, is now that it's a public road, so we're proceeding with the approvals. We will not proceed with construction until this litigation is over.
Can I get a motion?
Madam Chair, be it resolved that the Planning Commission regarding the request by Land Bridge LLC for proposed subdivision identified as Place Place to administratively transfer 1.165 acres from tax map 56, parcel 300 to parcel 38, and to create 10 new residential lots utilizing the large lot subdivision technique as more particularly described in the Department of Planning and Zoning file number 23-05-0378, hereby finds this subdivision to be consistent with goals and objectives of the Queen Anne's County zoning and subdivision regulations and the 2022 comprehensive plan, and hereby grants preliminary subdivision approval with the following conditions. 1, any remaining edits and/or documents required by a reviewing agency are reviewed and approved with the final subdivision review. 2, any required legal documents must be approved, signed, and recorded. 3, any required bonds, sureties, review, and inspection fees must be submitted to the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning and Zoning as appropriate. 4, the existing septic system on parcel 300 must be abandoned according to the Department of Environmental Health standards. 5, the existing well on parcel 300 must be abandoned and sealed by licensed well driller, and a well abandonment report must be submitted to the Department of Environmental Health prior to final signatures. And 6, all required signatures must be obtained.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
So I guess with my concern, Madam Chair, are that the conditions listed are more for a final approval versus a conditional. Does that present any legal?
No.
No? Okay.
We're in the first preliminary as well.
Okay.
Typically, there's standard, just to make sure we carry them over from.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any questions? Can I get for a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
1 opposed.
We need to count. We don't want to. I think it was 5-1.
Okay, the next subject, I have a form on WD-40. Why do we have that today, Amy? Do you know?
Yeah, I was wondering if that really.
This is
in line with the future protocol, but also typically, if this commission receives correspondence, we hold that correspondence and present it at your next meeting. You received correspondence regarding the WD-40 project and the decision that was made. One of the partners of that firm reached out to the county commissioners and likely intended to reach out to this planning commission requesting further consideration. I included my response to that partner, outlining the proper protocol and procedures for requesting reconsideration. But that said, we do convey all correspondence.
That's all.
It was
We
at
got
our
it this
chair.
morning.
I had
It was
to.
on our,
That's why I didn't have it.
so at this point in time, do you know if they filed an appeal?
No, they have not filed an appeal. But in general, you will receive correspondence in accordance with the protocol, and this just happened to meet that criteria at this time. It was an unusual enough request that we also included the response to that correspondence that was sent, just to explain what staff had done to support that applicant's request.
So, for future reference, I mean, when we deny something, and they still have the right to go to the commissioners, correct? Or no?
They have a right to file an appeal with the Board of Appeals.
Well, they also have the right to write a letter to the commissioners if they want to, but I'm not sure that the commissioners can do very much.
Okay.
That's not a channel to pursue an actionable
It
outcome.
becomes a public comment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I would like to entertain my favorite. Oh, public comment again. Oh, you have something.
Yeah, we do have we have a Zoom user. Christine would like to make general public comment.
Okay, Christine?
Good morning.
Morning. Can you?
So I'm sorry, I'm Christine Carter, 308 Oregon Road. I am rather new to trying to be involved, it was stated earlier a new policy would be implemented regarding comments and I guess what would be sent in and a 10-day policy. I'm assuming that is for them to take time to collect it and have it presented to you prior to the actual meeting. As a resident, I don't know how often the agendas come out, but I've only had a week's notice regarding this meeting from social media on Nextdoor, and I'm out there looking for it. So I just wanted to make the comment that it just is a slight concern, that's all. Just to have easier access to know when these meetings are. I don't know if I need to be looking in a particular place, aside from a comment coming off of social media from, the planning committee. It just, to truly have the community involved, it would be nice to have easier access somehow, or notification. I don't know if there's an email list that we can be privy to that, you may send out to the communities. I don't know. I just wanted to express my slight concern. I know that it'll still be available for comment less than 10 days, but I just, I don't know if there's questions I can ask, like for instance, where is the agenda posted?
Okay.
Is there an email list I can join, et cetera, to be more involved in what's going on in the community? I'm very concerned about the quality of life on Kent Island. And I would
Okay.
like to be informed properly versus social media, which I think people tend to lose their senses.
Okay,
with,
well,
a
we meet,
free-for-all, so to speak.
all right, well, we meet monthly, and our director's gonna give you your directions. She's right here, ready to speak to you.
Christine, and I appreciate your comments, and I'm glad that you made those comments. I was hoping that someone would. The policy that we've been discussing and that we are going to put forward is in no means meant to curtail public comment. We encourage public comment. We welcome your comment. At times we get so much input, though, it's very difficult to manage. So I just want to reiterate that some of the steps that we've taken to make sure that the community receives due notice is that we do post our agendas in advance, and we also work directly with our public relations specialist. She works directly with John Shelton, who is the clerk to this board and the supervisor of our planning department, to make sure that all the notices do go out on the social media platforms, and that the public is aware that not only of the meeting times, but also where to find information. The packets are also made available once the agendas are posted, and once the Planning Commission has had a chance to get their agenda. The timeframes that we're putting in place are really meant as a means to manage how we're going to convey that information. So information will go to the Planning Commission with their packets if we get correspondence within that 10-day window. After that, we'll still convey the information, but we just physically don't have time, and they won't have time to consider that information and read it in advance. So that means that we'll be providing it, but they won't have had time to fully contemplate it. And that will just let the public know if you weren't able to meet that submittal threshold and you still have comments to attend the meeting, to submit through Zoom. If you don't have that availability, a lot of people have work schedules and other obligations. You can still submit written comments, and they will still go into the file for consideration. We're just really trying to manage the different channels of information. It's not to curtail. We encourage as much input as we can possibly gather.
In addition to that, we meet on the second Thursday of every month, and at 8:45 in the morning.
Yeah, so you can count on that schedule, and the agendas are posted. There we go. And Bruce has put the website on the platform for you to make a note. All of the boards and commission agendas are posted here. The Planning Commission agenda is posted here on this site. When you click into the Planning Commission meeting, you will also have access to the meeting materials.
The notify me button so they can sign up.
And there's a notify me button so that you can sign up. Does that help?
Excellent. Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your comment.
May I ask just one more question? So how does the group there, the planning commissioner group there, so when we do make comments, like let's just say talking about the subdivision and they make their decisions, how is that actually incorporated? I guess if you're involved regularly, you'll know when these things start. So doing the last minute stuff is, making a comment at last minute is kind of pointless. I hate to say it. I mean, it seems pointless, but other than just having a record of someone's objection. But I guess how are the comments that we made
if they make them
incorporated
meeting
into
through
the decision?
Zoom, they are part.
Well, when comments are received, whether they're individual comments or collectively, substantial comments from a large group. What that lets the Planning Commission consider is the nature of the information that's been presented by the applicant, and also in attendance at our meetings are the planning staff, but also Department of Public Works staff, sometimes state highway staff. So what the Planning Commission may do as a result of the issues that are raised is seek additional input to help them to weigh all of the comments that have been received, and to make sure that all of the points of compliance with all of the various standards that they're responsible for implementing are being met. Sometimes the concerns that are raised and they don't really represent a conflict with the legal findings of fact, but still in the context of a general impact, that's where the Planning Commission can consider and seek input from staff and other professionals who are in attendance.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That will close the session today.
Madam Chair, may I please make probably more of a public comment than from my
Okay.
chair here, but, and there's enforcement staff in the room, and I'd just like to bring to the department's attention and perhaps to the rest of the community at large, is in passive observations in my travels predominantly through the commercial corridor from the bridge to Graysonville, I guess. I'm noticing our sign ordinance, digital signage, is changing over, I think it's 30 seconds. We discussed this, a couple of us were here when we had all this trailers come into the parking lot and show us what they look like kind of stuff. If in your capacity, please, and your enforcement staff could keep an eye on that, because the turnover rate and the flashing and the moving is creeping. I'm seeing creep of that ordinance. It's not a heavy-handed thing. I think that it can be handled. I won't tell you how to do your job, but it's something that concerns me as more of these start to spread across the landscape, that maybe it's an education piece to enlighten those new owners of that technology.
Oh, they're very well aware.
All right, well then enforce the heavy hand. I'm pointing out that I'm seeing it, and I know that we are more of a reactive than a proactive scenario, so I'm bringing it to your attention if you had not been
Exactly what we
duly
expected
advised.
to happen once those signs got approved is what's happening.
Here, here.
After all my years of opposing them.
All of your counsel and
all my years of opposing them, I
Couldn't agree
lost,
more.
and now we have what could be expected.
Yeah, they're not allowed to turn over. I think it's 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
30
And they're
seconds.
turning over every 10 or 15.
They're only supposed to be so many colors, there's not
Yeah.
supposed to be,
It's bad. I would like not to see it get worse, in a nutshell. Thank you.
We'll address it. We have people, most of the electronic signs in the county will put up our shore signs, and they have control over how many times the sign flashes. So I will reach out to shore signs, and if you tell me what signs you're talking about, to see if that are their signs, and we can get that addressed.
I'll make a more constructive effort to note which ones I'm just sort of passing on the highway going, that changed twice in my passage, so it's clearly under 30 seconds.
Were you going the speed limit, or?
My comments are closed.
Touche.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? My
So
favorite.
moved.
Second?
Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.